Yeah, he's back there.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is just for information for voters and to opportunity to comment and ask questions. No decisions are being made here. This meeting is not being live streamed, but it is being recorded so that we can post it later. And there is an opportunity for people online as well to attend. So at the end, we'll go ahead and try to answer any questions that they post online as well. If you could, please hold your questions and comments until after we have a presentation. Except for Commissioner Hempel.
I apologize, Jeremy, I'm confused. Is it being live streamed or not?
It is Zoom, but it is not being live streamed on Facebook right now.
Thank you very much.
We'll go back to the, please hold questions and comments until after the presentation. Just a quick introduction. I'm Jeremy Scott. I'm the county administrator. Janet Cope, she's the deputy administrator. I'll let you introduce yourselves.
I'm Deputy Sergeant with the Sheriff's Office.
Mike Cochran, Detective Sergeant.
Under Sheriff Lassiter.
I'm Brad Rizzo. I'm Finance Director.
My name's Tom Cremani. I'm a representative from Michigan Municipal Risk Management Authority, your insurance company and risk management company. With me is Randy Hazel and Kurt Cade. All of us are former law enforcement, and a lot of us, Randy and I both, not only did law enforcement, we also were administrators of county jails me in Southeast Michigan, him in Southwest Michigan. And we're risk consultants for your insurance company.
I'm Sherry Knight, jail administrator.
Kevin Hoke, Sheriff.
Again, thank you everybody for coming. We're going to start off with a presentation.
You already?
We're there already.
So this is gonna work, right?
Awesome.
This is, you're finishing up the technology at like 140, so hopefully this works. It's gonna be great. There's gonna be a little teeny Janet that appears in the corner of the screen in a moment. So the folks at home can watch my head. Oh, see? Okay, we're here to talk about the Public Safety Center. I have to stand in this one spot, apparently. I moved too much, it's gonna be weird. I have to look at the camera, but I can't sit on the screen. Public Safety Center, again, thank you everybody for coming. This is a great turnout. We're really hopeful we get some information out to folks and answer your questions momentarily. We're really here because it's about the November 5th election. We have a ballot initiative coming up, the commissioners. Putting ballot. It's about the current jail, the need to replace the current jail. Current jail is old, is non-compliant. Michigan Department of Corrections, MMRMA, our workers' compensation folks are all saying you folks need to do something. I'm kind of covering up the words. It's not safe. Sherry Knight and the sheriff's staff corrections will have to talk about that a little bit further if you have more questions. It just doesn't serve the community anymore in so many ways. Public Safety Center, on the other hand, 56 bed jail is planned, so that's part of the concept, which is the same number of beds that we currently have. So there'd be no additional corrections officers needed, 0. It'd be the same number of corrections officers. Same number of beds, different design to be actually more efficient. Public Safety Center would house the sheriff, the detectives, the road patrol, and dispatch, which are now under separate roofs. They would be under one roof. We'll have investigative facilities, include an evidence room, which is now, when part of it is in a different building, parts of the same building. They've had expanded facilities, would be more efficient, would be more secure. It would house emergency management now, which is in a separate building, allowing, again, more efficiency, more collaboration between the different divisions. We also have a training room, which we do not have at all now. Training room that could be used not just by our folks, but also by fire departments, ambulance authorities, the social services folks that could have combination workshops and trainings that would better serve the community in so many different ways. And kind of the cornerstone of a lot of this planning is when you secure flex spaces. These would be what they call little stimulus rooms, at least that's the concept at this point. To be able to provide space for so many different things. Our social services folks are really interested in this concept. It would provide a place for de-escalation, for folks to be booked, but not necessarily booked, but not incarcerated, kind of an in-between place that's not a full jail. That would provide kind of that calming space. Again, something we don't have. The courts have been attending a lot of these work group meetings. We're also very interested in these spaces. Judge Hamlin, when circuit court judges said, if you have these spaces, they will get used by the courts, by the sheriff's office, by our social services folks, all in names of reducing recidivism and helping members of our community. So then the next question is, what's it going to cost? It's going to cost a lot. There's no getting around that. The jails cost a lot. They're the single most expensive things that a county board of commissioners can ever authorize is a jail. It's an incredibly expensive prospect, without a doubt. Best estimate right now, it tops out, maximum estimate is $32.5 million. That's as a result of many years of discussions, consultation with many architects and needs analysis over and over again. $32.5 million is the best estimate for the highest amount. Hopefully it'll be less, but as we all know, nothing is sure until it goes up for bid. County can probably put up $7 million. That's the estimate right now. Our finance director is nodding with me, thank you. $7 million up front. So the total bond amount that we're looking at in November will be 25.5. So there's a lot of numbers floating around, but that's kind of the simple addition, subtraction. Have a 20-year construction bond, 0.56 mils, maximum. Because the county board is very committed to not levying any more than they possibly have to, and hopefully none ever. But we can't guarantee that because of the bond is kind of financial insurance. It's a financial guardrails, and Brad can speak more to this later on if you have more questions about it. As the undersheriff said, it's kind of like having a cosigner for your car loan for mom and dad. So what does that look like on your ballot? This is the exact ballot language that you're going to see. Absentee ballots are on their way out, so you'll be getting these in your mail if you're voting absentee. It's all big and scary. I don't pretend that you're going to read this right this second, but the big things here is that's the $25.5 million right there that I showed the subtraction earlier. The 20 years are mentioned, and that's the exact language that we have to follow. This is construction only. This is not operations. It's not anything else other than the construction of a public safety center. Which would include the design, site work, what they call FFE, furniture, fixture, and equipment, all those things that go into the building itself. That's the only thing we can use it for. The federal government won't let us use it for anything else. Our auditor won't use it for anything else. Our finance director won't let us use it for anything else. It's the only thing this money can be used for. And the slight variation down at the bottom, that's why we're calling it 0.56. Between 5579 and 55, I get my head out of the way, 5571. Anyway, that's because municipal bonds aren't like car payments or house payments. They vary. They're not the same every year. So that's why there's a slight variation in that number. So that's why you round it up to 0.56. So again, those are the numbers, and they're big. Without a doubt, they're big. 32.5 plus the 7, 25.5 is for the bond amount that you're going to be asked to vote on in November. What does that really get us? Public safety center. What does that mean as far as your pocketbook? Well, the typical number that's used is the taxable value of $100,000. A lot of people know right off the top of their head what their taxable value is. I can happen to know mine, but it's 0.56 mils, and again, that'll be the maximum. That'll be the maximum. If this is approved in November, the board will not, you will not see it on your December taxes. It will not happen first year, maybe not the second year, maybe not the third year, hopefully not the fourth year, hopefully not ever. It really depends on so many different things, but the board is very committed to levying zero to as little as possible of that 0.56. Again, it's just a financial guardrail system. So $56 for your $100,000 taxable value on your house. And say, well, what does that mean to folks in Antrim County on a township by township basis? You can see those numbers there, varies a lot. Star and Mansalona are the lowest. which seemed absurdly low, but I believe it's Lakes to the north. The subdivision over there that's bringing those numbers down. Torch Lake, I get my help out of the way. So $95 at highest. Nobody is over $100 annually. Again, this is average. Every individual would be different, of course. And then that would only be if the maximum were levied, which the board's intention is to never do that. If you have questions about your own taxable debt, and this is just residential, it's not including commercial. But these are the most common questions for folks is what's it gonna cost me? What's it gonna cost? And if you have any questions about your individual property, just let us know. Equalization can help you with that. It looks at your tax bill. We can help you do the math, if there's any difficulties there. So at the end of the day, Public Safety Center, it would hold offenders accountable just like the jail does. Keep the folks in jail that need to be in jail, that are put in jail. We would have the programming and the diversions to help decrease recidivism. We try to help change people's lives and improve things for people going forward. It would create a safer, more secure jail. And a secure jail is a safer jail is a more secure jail. Did I say that wrong? I take that. It's very circular. Either way, it creates a more secure community. And that's the whole point. Along with the focus. Okay, stuff out of the way. Mental health and flexibility. Again, substance abuse treatment would be is a huge part of this package and part of the program that we could do if we had a public safety center. With the mental health folks will get involved in helping to post-release treatment is something we can't do now. We just don't have the space or the capacity. With the public safety center, we would be able to, and almost everybody's affected in this county, in the country, in the world, one way or another by substance abuse issues. We have very little way to deal with that right now in this county. We don't have a hospital. We don't have any mental health facilities. Helping the folks that are in the jail, just move out of the jail so best we can possibly do at this point. And it's all about having a strong community. This is a community project. If you're not affected directly by a public safety center, you're affected indirectly, even if you don't know it, because your road patrol would be more efficient. The detectives would be more efficient, dispatch, everybody would be more efficient. We could better serve the community. This is a community project. And that's why we're asking the community to vote on this on November 5th. Because the public safety center isn't just about the inmates, it's about the county as a whole, it's about everyone else. There's the URL, there's the QR code, which we have taught Sheriff Dean how to use, so that's a good one. And that is my spiel.
So at this time, the podium is absolutely open to anybody that wants to make a comment or has a question.
We can talk about this a lot. But if anybody's got specific questions, we have the rest of the day blocked out.
Just to clarify, I think I know, but maybe I'll help explain it for everybody, or I might be wrong. You say sometimes we might not have to pay anything. So is that based on Antrim County's current millage and funds on hand that they might just be able to make the payments every year?
Correct. So, we have about, as Janet pointed out, about 7 million of, either, both general fund and delinquent tax money that we can put into construction. Every year we've had, surpluses in and around the $1 million mark. So those funds that are typically the surplus, we're putting all those in even next year's budget. All of those are going into the building improvement fund, and those will be used for paying the bond. So the years that we have a large surplus, those funds will stay in that other fund, earn interest on it. And for a year that there's a smaller surplus, we can use those to cover. Is that answering the question?
Yeah, thank you. And I'd just like to say I'm for it. For anyone that doesn't watch the news or read the news on a regular basis, this has been going on for years, especially the mental health aspect more and more. You know, usually Traverse makes it on the news and they've had just issues there. You know, taking care of people with mental health issues and the drugs, which go hand in hand. So the mental health aspect of this, along with the flexibility of it, to me is awesome. Yeah, no one wants to pay more taxes, but it's a no-brainer. We're throwing money away if we put in more money into that old center. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve Foley and I live in Forest Home Township. And I just have 3 comments. I've not worked here, I've not been in law enforcement, but I started out my career working in mental health. I worked for a state hospital and it was an inpatient facility, and all times of day and night, people would come and drop folks off. And some of them were having a bad night and some of them were having a bad life. And the expectation was that we had to take them in and do something with them. And that was our mission. That's why I worked there. That's what we wanted to do. But it made all the difference in the world when we had enough facility to do that. And I look at the complexity. And one of the things that struck me when I looked at sort of all the dimensions and heard your report is this whole idea about separation. Because if you can't separate people, and God, I know that from the psych hospital. If you can't control them with the structure, you have to control them with your staff. And if you can't control them with your staff, the community gets down on you and they won't remember the numbers and the bond that failed. They'll just remember that we sent somebody to you because we didn't know what to do. The community doesn't know what to do. We sent them to these guys and they have to do something with them. So from my old memories, I think some of them were maybe trauma. I would say you need the facility you're asking for, definitely. The second point is maybe in honor of my deceased father, but he always used to say that if you've got something and you're trying to kind of limp it along, thinking like this is not a good year to afford it, 5 years from now will not be a good year to afford it. If you bought anything, and particularly in this current age. So I say, if it looks good and we've got a good plan and we've looked at all the details, I'm totally in favor of this. The last thing I want to say is I sat down, I think maybe like other folks have, and thought, okay, what's it really going to cost me? So I figured out what's my house. It wasn't hard. I just looked it up, the value of my house, and then applied it to the formula. And I thought, what is that? Well, that for me is about 3 pies at Friskies, 2 gallons of cider, and a lunch for my wife and I. Now, you folks who are getting the profile, you see, well, you could do without the pies. But still, even if I took the pies in, that's not a lot of money. So what I'm getting as a citizen, I could do one less Friskies move and cover the whole thing. So thanks for all the work you're doing. Appreciate it. And
Thank
I'm
you.
obviously in favor of it.
Jeremy, I'd like to comment on what he just said. One of the biggest liabilities that your county has and a lot of jails have is you can't stay true to your classification system. There's classification system that's based on risk, based on special management, based on protective custody for inmates that need to be protected. You know, every inmate has different circumstances going on, different charges, different exposures to being assaulted or being sexually assaulted, or might be in crisis and you might put in a cell with a violent offender and might get hurt. The county, and these are 90% of it, these people, 99% of them are all going to come back to your community, and you have to protect them while they're here. And in your current facility, you cannot protect inmates from each other because of the way your facility is designed. And it was no fault of the people back, 70 years ago when they built the facility, because jails were different then. But now you have an obligation to care for the people in custody and to separate them by risk and protect those that are most vulnerable. And I did this to follow up on what this young man used to say, because back when I was a young policeman, and I know Kurt and Randy, when we were young policemen, we took them to those and dropped them off at the mental health facilities. Well, now they're all called county jails, and basically people in crisis now go to county jails, and there's not in your current condition, there's no place for treatment in your facility. So.
Sir.
I hope it won't sound contrarian here. I'm truly not trying to. Um, I don't understand the municipal thing where if you don't have to charge the whole thing, you don't have to. Is there any chance that the county's gonna be able to say 10 years from now? Hey, we're paying off this really good, but we really want to do this extra thing for the county sheriff's department. Can they tap into that money for things that aren't already in this plan?
No, so it is construction only. There is no operation or secondary projects with it. It's construction of that building.
And that's heavily regulated by
Yeah.
both the state and the federal government.
The government regulates?
Government regulates itself, you know.
I cannot ask for patrol vehicles through this bond. I can't ask for personnel through this bond whatsoever.
Okay, that answers the question. Thank you. Second, and this is just a general question. Are we buying a Cadillac when a Chevy would be okay?
The answer really is no. We're not. We've spent years kind of tearing away at this. The original numbers were much higher when we sat at the table with the then Sheriff Van Bean. And we have chopped and chopped and chopped. Now, of course, there's more to come. This was all in conceptual design. We haven't hired an architect to actually design the final plans, but out of the concepts, we were insistent. I mean, one of the absolute things that was a non-starter for us was that it would not take a single additional staff to run this operations, which if you've paid any attention to any other new jails, that's not usually true. But that was an absolute key, important piece of the pie for us.
Okay. And one last question, and it's a little off topic. My phone number is from Macomb County. My brother's phone number is from East Bay, St. Louis, Mississippi. We both got text notifications about this meeting today. Does anyone here know how that happened?
It was a robo-text. Several people were sending it to me as well.
It wasn't from us.
Okay, it did sound, I had to guess that it was from a contrarian viewpoint, but
It looked like it was a 517 number that I.
yeah, wherever that is, do we know where that's?
Lansing. I believe.
Lansing.
Lansing area.
Thank you all, I appreciate it.
I think Diana got it too. Diana, the nurse got it. Hi. I'm Stacy Truesdell and most prosecutor. I'm not here in that role today. I'm here as a citizen. As many of you know, I do a lot of juvenile work, and my question is sort of going back to Steve Foley's question. Are there going to be any facilities for juveniles in trouble here, even for a temporary holdover? Right now, we have nowhere to take kids and youth in trouble, whether it's for overnight or a period of hours, or their parents need a respite. So getting to the mental health aspect of it all and knowing the confines our current jail has, are we going to have anywhere to put those kids?
There will be a cell in this facility for a juvenile. Yes.
Okay, and that would be available, obviously pursuant to policy and laws and things like that.
Absolutely.
But there will be a place, and there will be someone there to watch the juvenile, because usually we have to call DHS and get them.
No, on the juveniles, it's probate court that hires them.
Right, they usually call DHS, but will we be using a CO, or will we still
No,
be
there's,
responsible?
it's a citizen.
We
Okay,
call them a sitter.
Mhm.
right,
Like a babysitter.
okay. That cell will meet all the requirements of being separate from sight and sound of adults.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you for allowing me to be heard today. My name is Joseph DePinto. I live in Echo Township. Like the gentleman who mentioned the text, I got that yesterday evening. I'm not prepared at all to speak today. I'm kind of catching up. I came here just to get some information, and I got it. My first knee-jerk reaction is to this is from my 24 years of being a full-time paramedic in the state of Michigan, is that whatever the police need, the police should get. We can't do our job without the police, and they need to be happy and supported and have all the tools and technology that is that is available. Now, that's fantasy sometimes. I did make my bones in Southeast Michigan. I've been in and out of county jail, Wayne, Washtenaw, Oakland. So coming up here was a little bit of a different groove. You mentioned the fact that there's going to be the same amount of beds. Increase services somehow. And when you talk about jails, I assume you talk like hospitals, it's about beds and X number of beds, X number of staff. I can only speak for the last 5 years of me being a paramedic here that there's not a lot of evidence right now with your system and your place that allow for people that do have mental health crises or have minor medical issues. Ongoing medical issues that need maintenance when they come into your jail. At 3 in the morning, they have a minor complaint. I'm bringing them to Munson Hospital. I'm not bringing them to the closest hospital where they would get the cheapest care. Bring them to Munson Hospital because that is the contract the doctor has with that. We go there. So my question to you guys is, with this new facility. Oh, by the way, I've never ever met the nurse. Never. I picked up hundreds of patients there. I complained every time that I couldn't get them. I heard them provide a report on a patient. We get an officer who was really confused. And handing me paperwork saying, I don't know. So they're spending every time one of these people goes to Munson and gets the full workup because God forbid, the person watching them, they don't know anything at 3 in the morning. They call the doctor, the doctor's not gonna put themselves on the line like, yeah, they're fine. Like, no, if there's any question, it's getting the ambulance off the hospital. We go, so with all this millions of dollars, can you please put a nurse on staff 24/7 with this new wonderful place? Yeah. Make your people understand the inner facility respect that is due a medical provider showing up at your facility, and I demand a report. I mean, I demand that someone knows what the hell's going on with this person. They're sentencing. I should never ever get that. So I want the medical thing. And the training room, that sounds great. The former administration was very on board with training, inner facility training. I was the liaison for Township Ambulance Authority, and I had before the former undersheriff left, we were sitting meeting multiple meetings, getting some training together so that these handoffs, the patients and the facility stuff go well. Now, boots on the ground, with them was the officer in the dark, was someone I've never been let down. These guys are awesome. I've made 7 months and ridiculous stuff for hours, wasting his night for medical stuff like that. I'm not saying anything bad, but the interagency, like brass to brass stuff needs to get better for me to be like super excited about giving you guys a ton of money with the ambulance service. I know we'll get export, but like you have to beg and borrow for half a bill too, you know. I mean, it's like this is something that's something random. Give them the money. I think they need it. I just want to know that. How can you help? I mean, 56 beds, like you said, you're the same amount. I hear you guys streeting 10 nines left and right. Like, I don't know why, but is it because you're short staffed at night? We just can't bring them in, so we'll let them go. Whereas if we had enough people in that jail to successfully take care of these people that they came in, we come home, not take them back out. I don't know how those decisions are made. I'm not trying to press this, but all I can do is objectively listen and I hear what's going on. And most of that was COVID, but I wonder sometimes if it's staffing issues because. I'm gonna be done. Thank you.
Just one point of clarification here.
I want the medical side to take care of.
One point of clarification here, 56 beds, the same amount of beds, not the same amount of space. That's actually what we're in desperate need of. The space that we have is way too small for sheriff's staff, way too small for 911, way too small for detectives and evidence and meeting. You know, there are no rooms for people to come into that jail right now.
We're in 3 different buildings right now.
And by the way, I hope the training is working. I don't work at TA anymore. I'm retired, but I know that some little fire department sheriff.
You need a job. You need a job.
I can make it happen.
My name is Sally Foley. I'm related to Steve Foley, I also live in Forest Home Township. And I was fortunate enough to be here when this gorgeous new building opened and I got a tour. But on the same day, they actually said that you could, if you wanted, go for a tour of the jail. And that number was much smaller. I think I was in a group of 5 and I think a couple of groups went through the jail. I wonder, could I see a show of hands of people who have actually been inside of our jail? Oh, that's impressive. That's impressive. So let me just speak from my experience of it. And that is that they are 2 large rooms with bunk beds with about 40 people in them sometimes. The associate who took me through was amazing. He was great. He was informed. The kitchen is about the size of 3 or 4 stewardess kitchens on airplanes run together, and they have to get all the food out of there. The observation, the video camera room, I think is a redone closet. It's really tiny, and people have to sit in there and watch all these cameras, and they are like cheek to jowl with each other. If there's no space for books or puzzles that family members bring in and donate, they're just stacked up in one area because they don't even have a place to display them or help people get to them. The windows, there are fewer windows in the jail and sunlight coming into the jail than the Bel Air post office. And there's just those, when you look outside and you see those slits, that is what they live with. And sometimes the person who took us through in the tour explained that people can be in as much as 2 years. There's no place to walk outside, no place. So these people with these mental health issues, they may have broken the law, but we're not going to help them learn to do better by squeezing them into an absolutely terrible situation. One whole room is unair conditioned. And they live there all summer long with the climate change and everything. And the other room has air, but only one room has air. I was also really aware of the blind spots problem and how tiny the hallway is. I don't know how you all do it. You are impressive. You give so much back to the community. You care so much. And I just want to say that this issue of a new jail has been kicked down the can a number of years up here. I've been coming up here since 1950. I'm a full-time resident now. It's not going to get cheaper. And what they're proposing and what their design is so flexible and creative for further use. I was a social worker for 45 years. I love the idea of having places to address juvenile issues, to address smaller step down kinds of things. It seems very flexible and very smart. So I just want to end by saying that the guy who took us on the tour, and he would actually let us go into the room where the prisoners were, just inside the door. And most people didn't want to because they were afraid they might get jumped or something. These people are sitting there waiting while they, quote, do their time, but they're not able to do anything around healing. And the last thing the guy said to me, the gentleman who took me through, was he looked at us and he said, we, the sheriff's staff, the people who work in the jail, we are meeting people on the worst day of their lives. This is horrible to have done something that lands you in a prison. And we can't send some of these people on to, a regular prison because they're full. They're going to stay right here for months to do their time. And they're just going to sit and sit. And I think the people who work there are phenomenal. They don't have room for a printer to report and give you a report as you're picking up somebody. I didn't see any office space, desk space at all. Must be in one of the other rooms, which if you're short-staffed and if you're running on a shoestring, because that's what we ask government to do in Antrim County, people are really careful about their dollar. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you're not going to be able to run over to the detective's office and print something out. Because you can't leave the jail because you're there. So we need a space that functions and operates well. And all of us have been at some point in our life crammed in a tiny space, sometimes with all of our kids, thinking, I don't even know if I can do 2 nights here. I don't know how our staff do it. And I want to thank you for extraordinary service because they really care. They really care. And I think we need to care too. And we don't need the pie.
Let's make a comment. I mean, thank you for your comments. What's interesting about some of you working with the National Institute of Corrections on the design for this and the concept. And one of the things they recommend, if this is approved and moving forward, if it gets designed and built, is that the people that have been working behind the scenes to spend a night in the jail before it technically opens. to help the staff, learn how it all functions and to iron out any issues. And that will be really interesting if it happens. Not sure I'm looking forward to it.
My name is Tim Moran. I'm a legal resident of Florida, but I own a home here and property in Antrim County. I was a federal officer for 22 years in federal prisons, everything from pretrial to penitentiary. I also built a Florida State work camp using inmate labor as technically a vocational instructor, but we used inmate labor to build a camp down in the Florida Keys. I have 40+ years in construction, and I worked directly with convicts in the prisons. I actually supervised them as a work supervisor. I also started as a firearm instructor and ended up as a lead firearm instructor for U.S. Department of Justice. I am more or less retired right now, although being married, I'm not really retired. The first time that I met Sheriff Hoke, I asked him a question. I said, is your jail at the point where you could possibly lose accreditation? We talked about that a little bit, and you're bumping right up against or have obliterated some of the standards where you will lose accreditation. His answer was yes. That would result in a loss of revenue for the county because you probably get paid when you keep people in here. That would also increase your costs because you'd have to farm out people if you were no longer allowed to have people in here. I also took the jail tour. My first impression was it's not lit very well. I happen to be an electrician also, and bad eyes. It is dangerous. I guarantee you, how you haven't had somebody be horribly hurt just at the point where you're walking them up the stairs into the place and then have like a 6x6 area to control somebody. And like you say, this is their worst day. I don't know how that hasn't happened yet, if it hasn't. It is dangerous. Separation is also something that's like a huge concern. I had 22 years. On my retirement party, I thanked a classification officer because he was the best, one of the best, most professional people I've ever worked with. And we didn't know whether we were going to get Manuel Noriega, who we did get. We didn't know if we were going to get someone who had literally unlimited financial resources. We didn't know if we were going to get murderers. I know murder is not necessarily a federal offense, but we had murderers. His job was to keep everybody separated just enough for not being able to get together and gang up on us. And he did a great job. And we never really had anybody die in the prison that I worked in. Let me just, I don't want to miss any points too. That is incredibly important, really. Again, liability. If you stick a youthful offender in with somebody that you don't know is a hardened criminal, and then you have an accident or you have an intentional assault, you're going to be facing some serious liability questions. And having that space is what allows you to separate. The attitude of the public when they come into a decent facility to visit or to see what their relatives are getting into is going to help. They're not going to want to, they're not going to want to be dealing with that old jail. I guess they can come visit, but I mean, I assume they can get visiting hours. But when they come into a well-lit, clean, decently run place, it's going to change their attitude. And that home support is what's going to keep people from coming back. It's practically the number one thing that contributes to that. I did take the tour. You were the one leading the tour. I don't know if you remember what I asked you. I said, are you all advocating for this because you want a nicer place? And you said, no, that's not the reason. And I believe it based on what you were advocating for. It's not just they want a better place to work. They want some place that they can work with, and they can work with the people and do their job in a way, a nice way. God knows you're struggling along the way it is. More space, less crowding. Also, your point about creative measures. If you don't have the space, you're jammed into a closet, you can't be creative with how you deal with people that are incarcerated. If you have the space to step by, have a calm space, have a place to talk to somebody and calm them down, you're fine. You're great. You're good to go. You're golden. Or at least you can get creative. And God knows they're going to be mandating more and more creative solutions over in the next few years. It's not just throw them in a box anymore. Can't do that. Can't do that even in federal prison. Can't do that in Supermax. Okay, so I looked at almost word for word on your pre-assessment for the construction. And I don't think I worked for the federal government for 22 plus years. I don't think I've ever seen a better study, a more concise, well thought out study for the need and what you're actually looking for. And to me, it's to be commended. Whoever decided we're going to spend this much money for that study, I think it's to be commended too. I hope you get it. I understand you can't really advocate it in a public forum or whatever, but I do hope you get it. And I do commend everybody for doing the job you're doing with what you have. Thank you.
Just to follow up on his comments, so Randy and I work hand in fist with the Michigan Department of Corrections. This is one of the jails that's in the poorest condition in the state of Michigan. And it's through no fault of anybody. It's just an old jail. It's outdated. The facilities are outdated. The electrical, the plumbing, the corridors here are only half the size they should be. It's not well lit. It's not well lit, and the needs assessment was obviously appropriate. The other thing you need to understand, and this came up earlier in the discussion, is classification and special management and stuff like that. All this stuff goes hand in hand. You've got to separate people by their risk to the other inmates and risk to the staff. And you have to have specific types of cells for that. You can't have a dormitory area like where somebody talks about going in the dorm area. Those are for low risk inmates that pretty much get along with each other. But you need single person cells, double person cells. You need special management cells. You need a variety of different things. And having said that, there's a thing in the corrections thing called operational capacity. You build a 59 bed jails, you don't really ever want to exceed maybe 40, 45 inmates, because you have in county jails, you're moving people around all the time. You might have 5 cells for maximum security inmates, but you might have a homicide, or you might have a bank robbery, and you need those max cells. It might have to move people around, but you can't move them in with people that are nonviolent offenders. So you have to have the right kind of cells, and jail architects understand this. And the other thing, and I know a lot of people are very, very well informed on what you want to build. The jail that will be built for this facility, and I don't know who the architect will be or not, but they are built for efficiency, and technologies built into the facility to maximize the safety of the officers, of the inmates. It's phenomenal. I know a lot of you raise your hands that you've been to this jail. Has any of you been in a new updated jail, newly built jail in the last 4 or 5 years? It's amazing to see. I mean, they're so much better built. They're so efficient. They maximize staff usage. There's safety. There's sight and sound separation built in for females, males, transgenders, juveniles. This is something that all of us that are in this business really believe in. And I'm not here to advocate for this, because obviously I work for your insurance company, I work for your county, but I'm just telling you the realities of your facility.
And, to follow up on Tom's comments, I spent a lot of time in the Wexford County Jail. You're not as an inmate, but, and it was built in 2017, so it's a fairly new jail. Even new jails are not nice places to be. They're still jails. It's not like a new jail would be, like hotel rooms for prisoners. They're still obviously jails, and they're not nice places to be. They're just a new public safety center would be safe, secure.
Hi, my name is Julie Beck. Was for or against the new facility. But just hearing you talk about the safety. Everyone's talking about the safety part, the enemy. Or whatever, but what if I was arrested here, town, one night, maybe, not. I was taken. I'm in a cell with someone who's like not well. I think I'm a pretty well person, mentally. And it just made me think, oh my God, what if it was any of my family members or friends? Wouldn't I want them in a safe space? Like maybe if they have to spend the night there. And I thought, yeah, I would. I wouldn't want my daughter going into that jail, being with somebody who maybe, raped somebody else. So yeah, I'm cool.
Well said. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Christy Wilson. I live in Kearney Township. And I have been on the jail tour, and I 100% agree that we need a new jail, no doubt about that. It is my understanding that if this does not get voted in November, that we will still be building a new jail, is that correct? I guess I'm wondering what the differences will be, is what we've been missing out on if this gets voted down.
If this gets voted down, the board will have to consider options. There's no definitive, hey, this is the direction we're going. If it is the only thing that this board has indicated is that they don't desire to spend hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars on a building that's falling apart and for the options are numerous and the small details between them are numerous. Realistically, we're going to get to the point where we have to ship inmates off. We still have to have holding cells here, and if you're going to have holding cells here in that facility, you have to fix that facility. So something will have to be done, and likely something will have to be built at some point, but we don't know what that would look like.
Okay, I'm glad you clarified that because I thought we were getting one no matter what. So, all right.
Anything other than what's being presented right now would not serve the community as well as the public safety center. It would not include the training, it would not include the mental health capacity spaces, wouldn't include the flex spaces, wouldn't include the additional diversions for incarceration, wouldn't include any of those things that would be included now. That's the massive downside.
All right, so this vote is super important. All right, thank you.
We do have a question from online. If this is approved, will the current jail be demolished or is it being repurposed? Kind of to what I was just speaking to there, this building is in absolute disarray. We have hundreds of thousands of dollars of repairs that are absolutely have to be done in the next couple of years and millions over beyond that to fix issues. So an attempt to repurpose this building would not be a good use of funding. Yeah. Yeah. I'll work on that while.
Hi, my name is Rich. I live in Custer, and I just have a couple quick questions. One is, and I don't even know where this new building would be. Maybe somebody else does. And also, just a comment or a question or clarification from Jeremy. You mentioned in your comments that you haven't even had an architect design it yet. So I was wondering, how do we know how concrete the final number is? You know, for the building costs and so forth. If we haven't really completed the architectural stage yet. So what's our confidence level in the cost that you're estimating for this building? Or, you know, how did you come up with that number?
So while the architects haven't done the final design, we have had multiple studies done on the space that's needed and multiple contractors and architects consulted on how much that square footage costs are. So square footage for cells, square footage for hallways, square footage for office space, square footage for visiting. That's all been added up. It's a 32,000 square foot facility that has been established. And we have worked with architects. However, we haven't paid them to draw every line and finalize designs.
Yeah, and that's the needs analysis that's referred to earlier. That's where we get the square foot numbers. So when you're doing rough costs for construction, you're basing it on square feet. So we know how much the square feet we need for the jail portion, which is way more expensive than the 2/3 of the jail. That would be kind of the office space and training room, that was the space. So with those square foot numbers in mind, you can get a very solid price. Where would it be?
And if you actually look
Location.
there, you can see, right now we're in the county building, which is the building labeled on the left, kind of center of the screen there. So if you can follow along here, this is how things look right now. We have the current jail at the south. This space is open. This building was demolished because it was falling apart and also costing quite a bit of money.
The village has graciously agreed to vacate that if the funding is made available for the public safety center. And that's key to this next slide.
As you can see, the proposed public safety center would be to the north. Leaving this space below open for parking and green space. But with the concept that after we're all long gone, because we're a county government, you have to think in decades, you can't just think in the next month and then the next year. At some point, to benefit to the public, to the village, to the county in general, is this building will also fall apart again after we're gone. But if we are not thinking that now, then somebody's not going to be prepared for that in the future. So this would open up the opportunity that any future building could be built to the south of the jail that we're proposing.
And then theoretically, a new block of downtown Bel Air could be recreated. Court Street could go back to the way it was, 50 years ago. I mean, this is all just theoretical. None of us sitting here are going to make any of those decisions. But if the public safety center goes forward, that could happen. It is a possibility. And the other beauty, back up one, Jeremy, with the green space to the south of the proposed public safety center, coming into town on M88, the viewpoint will be the courthouse, which right now you kind of see the jail, which a lot of people don't even recognize is a jail. But then the 1905 courthouse would be kind of the focal point coming into the village, which would be really pretty cool.
Other questions?
A lot of the questions to me have kind of already been answered because I'd recommend, and there's no wrong questions, and everybody please step up and ask a question. Don't be shy. I'd recommend following Antrim County on Facebook and or going to the website, and please check out the QR code and you guys can probably list the link better than I can, but it talks about when this started, I mean, years ago, and all the planning, and it has a ton of questions and answered. So, but please step up.
We have all sorts of materials over there on the table. Feel free to take whatever you need. If you want more, we can get you more. We have, we're trying to get as much information out to people as we possibly can.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
If you could stay close to the microphone so people that are online can hear you, that'd be great.
I'm Cindy Township. Thanks for doing this, by the way. Hearing. And I've tried to read through everything I didn't catch. So once it's approved, and do we start building? How long will it take?
So design process is typically for a facility like this is gonna be a year. We are ready to hit the ground running if this is approved. We've already prepared everything for RFPs to go out to architects and to go out to construction managers. The goal is that we will break ground next fall. The sooner we do this, obviously, the less it's going to cost. But these things take time. So fall of next year is the goal to break ground, with the majority of the construction happening in 2026.
Would be a move-in date of early 27, assuming all goes well, if it's approved.
Okay, and then basically the millage that we're voting for is the cost of construction only, as you said. And any and all funds that are ultimately deemed unnecessary because we anticipated, which is where with construction, I realize, but what happens to the funds? I mean, you manage it year by year. If you didn't end up meeting it all, then you put that.
So anything that isn't used will be available for bond payment. At some point, we're gonna have funds that are in the debt payment fund, that'll be earning interest. When we have the bond, we'll know to the dollar how much we need. So if we get to the point that we have all of the funds that we need for it, then we can return back to normal. But yeah, we will know exactly to the penny how much we need for debt service.
Tax bill and the millage is there. It never disappears. Right? Pretty much there. So, I can't speak for everyone in this room, but obviously I think as a community, we all know we need this. So I'm just simply asking, how do we manage the funds so the taxpayer doesn't continue to pay down the road for maybe something that is no longer necessary? I'm not saying that we're wired that way as a commission, but as the taxpayer, we got to ask these tough questions. And secondly, have we anticipated the cost to run a facility of this size? And what is that going to do to our future millages? Because I'm assuming that comes out of our county mills.
So multiple questions there.
Yes.
What people are voting on in November is a 20-year millage. So it will be a bond. Thank you, bond. It will be a possibility that it shows up at any point in those 20 years. When the board chooses not to levy any, which they, again, have absolutely said that that's their intent, you won't see it. So you might, if the day comes in 10 years that a small amount has to be levied, then you'll see it then, and that money would go towards bond payment. But you won't see it when it's zero. You won't see that they levied zero. You just won't see it at all. And then only time you would actually see it is if it actually got levied. The operation costs, so staffing, which is by far the highest, as we pointed out, is no increase. So no increase in staffing means you're not paying that. However, it is more square footage because we are desperately low on that. The assessment had increased square footage and but also with increased efficiency, 75% increased costs in utilities, which would be about additional $54,000 a year.
A year.
But that's more than offset by the need to not have to pay what $620,000 are estimated for immediate maintenance costs. We wouldn't have to pay those. We wouldn't have to do that $600,000 in maintenance costs on the existing jail. So $620,000 versus $54,000. That's pretty good offset.
Right. I mean, the 600 and some odd thousands is a fixed cost. Once it's paid, it's done. But I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
It would still be more. Every year it would be more because it's a 70-year-old jail.
Okay. Okay,
It's ongoing.
okay,
So the building's not getting any younger.
right, got it. No, it's not. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, how are you doing? My name is Eddie Prophet, Kearney Township. Quick question. I came in late, wasn't able to get here right at 2 o'clock. Is there any bank meetings scheduled, public hearings? Or public invitations? For after 3 o'clock, after 4 o'clock?
For the tour,
For the tours or for these kind of meetings, information meetings?
this. Oh, go ahead. This is the last meeting that we're having as a public like this, but we're gonna do a tour after this meeting.
Okay. I guess the biggest question I have is information meetings. They're all during the day, 2 o'clock. I've been to a couple of them. You're missing out a lot of the voters that can't come, can't attend these because they're working, so they're missing a lot of this information. You put a lot out there, the QR code, all the information you put out there. But a lot of these people don't read that. They'd rather talk to you in person, so they're missing out on a lot of that. So-
And we're doing our best.
Oh, I understand. I understand that. No.
Identifying some need. We can hold another one. We are happy to get the information out. We absolutely want to do that. But even sheriff and staff, going to other township meetings, and Rotary meetings, COA meetings, as much reach out as we possibly can. But if folks thinks we need to hold a night meeting, we will hold a night meeting and do the same thing.
And I'm not saying guarantee that people are gonna come, but at least give us an opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very pleased with this turnout.
Yeah.
Honestly.
But again, you're missing a lot of the people that are working, and they're looking at the bottom line. What's it gonna cost me every year? Sheriff Holtz has been to our township a couple times. Our commissioner's been there. We get some information, but we're not getting a lot. And a lot of people don't attend those meetings either. So there's a lot of information that's got to get passed out to the public. So I don't know if it's be worth it. You guys have to check out. Again, I can't guarantee that people are gonna show up. So at least gives them an opportunity. I worked at Lamina. There's 160 some people out there. Most of them can't come. They're not able to. They don't read the information that's out there. There's information that's left on the tables. They still don't read it. So they don't know what's going on. They have a lot of questions and they're wondering, what's it gonna cost me in the year? So information I've seen already today is great information that should be passed on. The one gentleman worked in the federal prisons, that's information again that these people need to know what's going on in that jail. So just my opinion.
Very well pointed out
Right.
too. It's the beauty of the business that we're in. We have staff on 24 hours.
Yep.
Call a number, we're always there.
Yep.
And we're doing our best to make sure that everybody employed in our department has this information, or at least has the resources to be able to pass it on to anybody. I can tell you right now, if someone called and said, I want someone to come talk to me about it, I would be willing to come out and talk to somebody about it.
And unfortunately, most people aren't gonna do that either. Not gonna call you. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
The information out to people. We've been talking about a direct mail campaign, but it's like everybody's getting those cards all the time right now, and most of them are going in the wastebasket. But why would we invest thousands of dollars in something that won't be effective? There's so many methods of communication now, but they're so segmented. How many people even get the newspaper anymore? It's like, yeah, we've done press releases. And the fact that Antrim, part of the beauty of Antrim County, we don't have a major metropolitan area. So there's no one city to go to where a lot of people get their information from. We're all over the place. That's part of the unique character of our county. But it makes it difficult to push out information. So we're trying to, these cards, we're trying to post them in, grocery stores and bulletin boards everywhere. But press releases, we've got a video that's almost done, which is really nice, but packs in a lot of information. Thanks to everybody who helped with that. But again, getting people to watch it, I don't know.
Okay. Our tax bill we send out a couple times a year, people, again, we put information on there for the township. All people look at what they owe. They don't look at the back, all the other information they could get from that. So it is tough. I understand that, but I'm just thinking, hey, possibly to have at least one of them, so maybe somebody else will come. If it's not available during the day, so. But, all right, thank you.
Hi, I'm Carla Bard. I'm from Kearney Township. Been to a lot of the meetings and I have to say that I know we're doing a good job. I think it's very imperative for our community safety. And of course, for a lot of reasons.
here because I just have a couple of questions. Right to Jeremy. If this bond is approved, okay, and it's never used, like you said, if we never levy and as we called it, and Janet called it, and commissioners called it an insurance policy. And it cannot be paid off earlier. How much interest will we be paying on that bond?
Well, that's largely dependent on what the interest rate is at the time of going to the bonds.
And do you know that? You know how much the interest rate on that?
Right now, it's a small market, it's an opaque market. Expecting probably around 3.7% right now.
Would that be variable or?
Fixed.
Fixed. Is that, so the interest that you would pay on that bond, is that a yearly?
Semi-annual.
I also had a neighbor. Actually, he was at Lamb. Dave, and he just wanted to me to ask me a question didn't know who was going to be here, so he just asked me to ask you, who do you work for? The question he wanted me to ask you, who do you work for? Jeremy?
Well, I work for the Board of Commissioners, but ultimately they work for the public. Yep.
Thank you. And also, he also asked that he be called at another time so that he could attend. He was working today. Thank you.
It's just 1 minute here. We're gonna swap out that mic. It sounds like it's a little terrible.
Looks. Would you like me to test it? 1, 2, 3? My name is Corky Crimmins and I live in Elk Rapids Township, the same as our Sheriff Hoke. It's good to see you.
See you.
I do have some questions. I believe it was the May 16th or June 20th meeting that Brad, you were asked by Dawn Levanway whether we could afford this without the bond or not. And I think your response was, if I heard you correctly, was it's possible, it will be difficult, but it's possible. Is that correct?
Correct. And it wouldn't be advisable, in my opinion,
But it is possible.
potentially.
And when you said that we pay 3.7% interest on this bond, how much is that a year? Did you give an answer? I didn't hear that.
It'll depend on how much is left with it, similar to the outstanding balance with that. You could average over the life of it, probably about 500,000 a year.
500,000 a year.
Mhm.
Okay. We do agree, many of us in this room, that we do need something done with our jail. And I have taken the jail tour. And I have been incarcerated. I was arrested as a teenager and spent the night in the juvenile delinquency home, not here in Antrim County, but someplace else. So I have that experience as well. And I have to say, I am really glad that I was behind bars with a green army blanket, no sheets, and a urinal on the wall, and an open stool, because it scared me straight. It was the best thing. I never did drugs from that time forward. But having had that experience, someone asked, are we doing a Cadillac instead of a Chevy? I think we are doing a Cadillac with our money. We all agree that the county commissioners need to take care of the jail. That is yes. Kevin has done a fantastic job in our county. All the sheriffs have. There are times we have people who have died and they come to our home and they serve us well. I would rather they get a bigger paycheck, quite frankly. However, it is the county commissioner's job to take care of the jails, and yet the county commissioners spend money on Paddle Antrim, Glacier Hills Bike Trail parking lots. And these desks alone cost $25,000 of taxpayer money. I am tired of you keeping and coming over and over and over again for millages. All we're saying is live within your means like the rest of us have to, like people who are going paycheck to paycheck. Nobody wants to be a killjoy. Nobody wants to have you guys work in hard conditions. We don't want that. We just want you to live within our budget and stop taking out more millages. Thank you.
Just one point of clarification. When Brad said that we could possibly just pay for it, he didn't mean out of pocket right now.
Correct, and that's, I wanted to
So
clarify.
20 years over a 20-year period, just like our bond, yeah.
Yeah, that we would still have to issue a bond either way. We could possibly do it without having the associated millage. And again, the goal of the millage either way is that we're not using it, we're hardly using it, if at all. So it would be, again, calling it like an insurance policy. If we don't have enough, then it's available. And that's in either way on it. But yes, we would have to borrow either way. We don't have the $32 million in the bank to do it.
The other point of having to vote, in addition to shoring up the finances, is this is a community project, and the Board of Commissioners has been very clear that they want the community's input on the project as a whole. So this gets the community, will demonstrate to the board and to the county whether or not the county as a whole is interested in this project moving forward.
Okay, somebody said you may have misspoke that it isn't really $500,000 a year. I was talking I sat next to Terry, so he wasn't sure if you misspoke and it was more, less than that or not. So I want to give you that.
So the 500, and maybe because there was a question about what the annual interest was.
Right.
So the 500 is the annual interest. On average, with the annual debt service, the entire payment will be about 1.7 million on average.
Okay.
Over the term.
I had two more questions, and I'm sorry to take your time, but thank you for having this meeting. We say we have 20 inmates a day on average. And somebody mentioned people being here for 2 years, but in your brochure, you say 60% of the population is only here for 1 to 2 days. And that 40% is there longer, and you say it's up to a year. So I just wasn't sure about that. I know that our laws have changed so that over the past 14 years, we've had about a 35% decrease in jail population. And I know that the Michigan Department of Corrections has closed 33 housing units around the state of Michigan. So those are all my concerns with taking all this money and spending it, given these statistics. So.
I mean, there was a number of things said there. 1 year is the statutory maximum, however, that is regularly go well beyond the 1 year. That is.
We had county jails that have inmates that are pre-trial for 5, 6, 7 years. You obviously, until you go to trial and you're adjudicated in trial for felonies, you can only be sentenced up to 1 year. And then the facilities she's talking about are prison facilities. We have 7 county jails that have closed in the past few years because they can't be maintained, and they don't have staffing to maintain them, and they lease beds from other counties. But that's long-term, that's not a good plan. They're mostly temporary solutions, so.
Question?
I do. Sorry, I asked a question earlier. I wasn't supposed to, not at the right time. Bill Heffernan, County Commissioner, District 1, represents Elk Rapids and Milton Township. We've talked a lot about the jail, and understandably so. But as I understand it, 70% of this facility isn't the jail. And so I would love to hear, Devin, from both you and Mike, in regards to, you've both been here quite a number of years. And I would love to hear the challenges that both your road patrol and your detective bureau has faced with the current facilities.
I could guarantee it was Bill that put me on the spot.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, we can do that. A lot of it is just, it's what everybody else is talking about with efficiency. If the public's calling 911 or calling the sheriff's office for any type of assistance, we're sending officers out. And I've been trying to find a way to compare it to something that I could understand and everybody else can understand. And the best thing I can think of is like going to Meijer for your groceries, right? It's efficiency. You want the people that are responding to you to be able to do everything in one place at one time, so they are ready to go for you when you need them right now. And we have a large county with a few officers at a time covering it, and them spending the time going between all of these buildings, conversing with the emergency manager or the CMH, the jail, and then back to the detective bureau. It's a lot of time spent trying to get one thing done for somebody that needed something an hour ago, and now someone else needs something and they have to get out and go help them. So the biggest thing is efficiency, and it's the best way that we can serve you as quickly as possible, because that's our goal.
Same with him, but as far as like our evidence rooms right now, we have 2 of them. I gotta walk past the county building here from our office to our other garage. There's property there, there's property in our property room that's in our building now. Our detectives, we usually have 2 of them besides me. This is how close they sit together in their office.
Get a better comparison here for
Their officer works under me. There is no office in our facility for him. So his office is out of the Mansalona substation. And again, the piggyback off of him is, we're walking to dispatch, walking over to the jail. Where if it was all in one facility, it'd be more efficient and for us, so.
Our business seconds start to matter a lot. And I think I would hope that most people don't understand that, but unfortunately, a lot of people do understand that. And us wasting 30 seconds to a minute getting to a vehicle or finishing up over at the jail and going back to our car, it doesn't seem like a lot, but I can tell you from firsthand experience, and everybody up here in a uniform or a polo has been there where that made a difference for someone in their well-being. So that's our goal, is to be able to serve everybody that needs us a lot quicker and a lot better.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Other questions? Statements?
If I could add one more thing, I don't know, we've talked about this too much. This is, there've been 2 jails in Bel Air, both have lasted 70 years, almost exactly. One would assume that the new public safety center would last at least 50 years, potentially 70 to match the other 3, just because that's a thing. We can't possibly plan for what's going to happen 50 years from now. So the goal and the concept and the design is to be as flexible as possible in the design, because we don't know what the laws are going to be in 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. So we have to plan for as much flexibility as possible to be able to incorporate all the changes that might happen in the coming years, which is really hard. But there's a lot of people that are working really hard to make that happen so we can serve the community.
As I'm sure most of you know, I'm Terry Van Alstine. I'm the board chair for the Antrim County Board of Commissioners. We've talked a lot about insurance policy. I can kind of give you a bit of a shot of what happened. Have one. Isabella County decided they were going to do some renovations They got into their building, found asbestos, didn't do a bond or any kind of a millage to do that. They had to lay off their entire road patrol. And now they have no road patrol. I guess they're trying to work through that, trying to figure out how they can come up with the money to put their road patrol back on, but that's what an insurance policy will do. That'll make sure that our sheriff's department will continue to function, the county will continue to function. And if we don't need it, we don't need to apply it. My goal is, I'm beyond, if we get through November's election, I'll be on the board for 4 more years, and I've completely advocated to Jeremy that I do not want to add any of this millage to any taxpayers' money. So I believe we can do it without any increase in expense or any increase in taxes at all. I don't see any, unless we have a big downturn in 2008 like we did. We may have to revisit that, but as I see it right now, I don't see any day that we'll have to actually assess that 0.56 millage. So that's all I have. Thanks. Thank you.
Any others? Anybody on the table here?
I just have one point I want to bring up, and it was, I believe it's Tim Warren, the federal agent that spoke earlier, worked in the prisons. He talked about, brought up housing inmates elsewhere, and going through one of the fact sheets, reading up on that. The estimates are $150,000 to $457,000 a year is what it would cost the county to house people out of county. And that's over and above the current budget. So that didn't estimated from $150,000 to $457,000.
So less than 500,000.
No, above.
It's over and above. That's what it cost over and above.
And that's all detailed in the source book. There's all those numbers that they're available. There you go. They're in there.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for your time.
Excuse me.
So, Jeremy, why didn't the county seek any grants from the state of Michigan for our new facility?
We did.
That was certainly something that was explored. The immediate problem with that is prevailing wage. Prevailing wage means a significantly more expensive facility. Any money that's taken from the state, because of the current laws in place, or federal, will require us to pay prevailing wages to everybody that works on the jail. That typically adds about 25% to any project. So if we couldn't identify funding that was over 25% of the project, which we could not, then it became we would just be spending more money on the facility for no reason.
Okay.
And we did request funding from the legislators, and there was no response.
And in the work group that you had in preparing for this, was there ever a discussion of collaborating with, say, Kalkaska? Because they can't house, because their jail is not usable. But did we ever consider a regional one where we could work with other counties?
Absolutely. That was absolutely explored. The problems that came up with that were similar to transporting our inmates. Immediate problem is transportation costs immediately go up. We still have to have local holding facility. So we would still have to build something here because the current facility can't function as that without millions of dollars in repairs. So the $150,000 to $450,000 that the undersheriff just mentioned, that would be continued cost. We would still have to pay to run these operations. But those conversations absolutely happened. I talked with the Kalkaska administrator, the new Kalkaska administrator. These are conversations that happened with Otsego. These are absolutely conversations that happened. And whenever possible, I absolutely believe in working together, multiple units of government. If there's an opportunity to save or to do something more efficiently, let's do that. But as it was explored, as we worked with the consultants to talk about those options, it just kept adding up to more money. And ultimately, we still would have to build a much bigger facility. We'd still be paying on a bond. Be trying to coordinate all that between multiple sheriffs, multiple boards of commissioners, and transporting everybody. And if it wasn't bad enough that the cost appears to be more than building it here, the loss in community was massive. First of all, you don't get the benefits of the public safety center that we're trying to build into this. Second of all, when somebody goes into prison, that breaks a family. And if you can't visit your family, not only does that set off the course of that person's life that's in prison in a bad direction, that's probably not going to be repaired, but you're setting off the children, the wife, the husband that are left behind who can't travel an hour or 2 hours to a facility to visit their loved one.
We detailed, if you have a copy of the source book, pages 10, 11, and 12 go into a lot of detail on the reasons why regional jail just doesn't make sense. Okay. There's been a lot of exploration, and the state of Michigan, I think we're citing here, there have been 18 counties that have had regional jail studies in Michigan in recent years. None of them have actually followed through with it for all of these reasons. It seems to make sense on the surface, absolutely does. We absolutely explored it, but it just, you start breaking it down, it just doesn't seem to work. Sadly.
Yep.
And anytime you transport, I mean, Sharon, the sheriff is says like anytime, part of the thing, anytime you transport a prisoner, you're adding risk. You're adding danger, you're adding safety issues. So a regional jail automatically means a lot of increased risk.
If I could add to part of your question there, if you don't mind, Carla. You mentioned something about Kalkaska. It's pretty much closed because of the jail. They're actually, they can't get personnel actually. It's very hard for them. I mean, we're all having a tough time trying to get employees. It's insane. So that's part of the reason why they did what they did. They just could not get anybody to be a corrections person.
You know, I have no, qualms about having a new facility. I think it's an excellent thing, but I also think that, with the recent, levy of taxes, we're going to be taxing our citizens, because of the millages that passed in the primary. It's gone up, it'll be 14% more. So not only are we asking, we're going to have 14% more taxes for the county schools, the aging, the renewal. I mean, there were renewals with an increase. So we're asking for this bond to do a jail that we may never use, but we're taxing our citizens to death. And I think that we need to start looking very carefully at what our responsibility is. And it is our roads and our safety of our community. And not all the extra frills and such, because I know that next year, 14% more on our taxes. And it needs to stop. So, but I hope we do get this jail a different way.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions?
Hi, Rachel Crino, many hats, nothing to explain. I guess the one thing I wanted to make sure that was mentioned and brought up was about the work group and all the people that were at the table. I'm not sure if it was listed in there, and I apologize that we didn't talk about that if we didn't. But we had about 40 people start with the work groups. What was that? May, June?
February, but sure.
February last year. But I wanted to make that point that the work groups really had a diverse group of people asking similar questions. Why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Also at those work groups, which I tend to sit on that side, were a lot of healthcare professionals
mental health professionals. Community mental health was at the table, DHS, the health center, asking how can we make an impact on our community because of the behavioral health issues that we're facing, especially with the opioid crisis and other SUDs that are out there. So as we talk about this, it's a bigger picture for our community. And I look at how can we prevent people from, I look at it as that door frame, right? Like, how do we stop people from walking through that door frame of being incarcerated? What can we do to promote and support them throughout this time? So that was my only thing I wanted to add in. Thanks.
Any others? Last call? All right, thank you, everybody, so much for your time.